welcome to the Monday evening.
Love ball like I do. After Dark's a must listen.
It's where I go to get my hoops fixed.
This is Field of 68 After Dark.
Welcome to a Saturday night edition of the Field of 68 After Dark on this Saturday, February 15th, 2025. We hope you had a wonderful February 14th, because if you're a college basketball fan, your Valentine's Day could have gone really well, but this was better. If you love college basketball, this was your kind of Saturday. It was elite. We had the sports 1 versus 2 showdown, the first in college basketball in 4 years, and in that battle, we saw the Auburn Tigers show the country why the pollsters didn't remove the number 1 tag last week, and why Bubba Cunningham said, I've never seen a number 1 overall seed like this in my 5 years on the committee. Final score, Auburn 94, Alabama 85. John Fanta, Jeff Goodman, Rob Dauster with you for the next hour. Then, of course, we'll have our afters. We have a loaded Saturday show, but we're not going to waste any time. Jeff Goodman, your reaction to a 1 versus 2 showdown that was an elite atmosphere. Alabama punched back, but Auburn held them off. What's your reaction?
Auburn continues over and over and over to both surprise and impress me. They've done it all year, from the start of the year when, they beat Houston after the horseplay on the flight. And they did it again tonight by going into Tuscaloosa and not just winning, but really controlling that game for the most part. And they did it really with a combination of defense, because they did a hell of a job. I mean, listen, Denver Jones did a great job, probably the best job anybody's done on Mark Sears all year, frustrating him. And that's the key, right? Mark Sears has to dominate his matchup. And instead, to me, again, he got outplayed on both ends of the court by Denver Jones. And Alabama can't have that, especially at home. And then I just thought, again, Mark Sears, if things are going well for Mark Sears, he's great. But when there's adversity, that's when sometimes Mark Sears starts to make some poor decisions, hunt his own shot rather than just starting to get his teammates involved, which is what he probably should have done tonight.
Yeah, the thing that really impressed me the most, Fanta, is I feel like people are going to talk about what Auburn did defensively here. Alabama was 5 for 26 from 3. They shot 50% from inside the arc when they are one of the best 2-point shooting teams in college basketball this year. Denver Jones, obviously, Mark Sears. But to me, the thing that stands out so much every single time that I watch this Auburn team play is how many ways and how many different styles of offense they can run to be able to beat you, right? If they want to run these ball screen sets for Janai Broome, where they're trying to get him on the move and they're trying to get him to roll to the basket, and they're looking for those lobs, and they're looking for to be able to get him touches when he's on the move, rolling to the rim, they can do that. When they want to run those sets to be able to get Miles Kelly running off of a screen or Denver Jones running off of a screen to get them into a 3, they can do that. When all else fails, and they just want to go Chad Baker or Mazzara iso ball, they can do that. When they want to spread the floor and give the ball to Todd Pettiford and just say, all right, look, we're going to put you in a high ball screen. You go figure it out. Go make it work. Go get us a bucket here. They can do that too. And you can't stop them anywhere. Like I feel when we talk about Auburn and when we think about Auburn and when we think about Bruce Pearl teams, about what they do defensively, right? And it's not like they're not good on that end of the floor, but this team right now, this Auburn team right now is on pace to be the single best offensive team that we have seen in the Ken Pom era. And I just don't think that is getting enough credit for what they do on that end of the floor and how many different ways they can beat you. They went into Coleman Coliseum, right? You can talk to beat writers that have been there for a long time. That was the craziest environment they've seen for an Alabama basketball game ever. And Auburn went in there, punched him in the mouth, and never really looked back. It was the first time in Nate Oates' tenure they did not lead in that building in his time in Tuscaloosa. Incredible performance from the Tigers.
It is. And you know what? I agree with you on this. The offensive part of the game. We knew that this was most efficient offense against highest scoring offense. So the thought was, well, who's got a better team defensively? And on paper, it was Auburn coming into the game. Alabama had won 7 in a row, but they had done it by scoring at least 100 points in 3 of those games. And I think, Jeff, and we're going to have Bruce Pearl in a few moments, but you could sense the pride he had with Denver Jones in this game. That Denver Jones said, I'm going to take on Mark Sears. I'm going to make life difficult for him when he's on offense. We're going to make him uncomfortable. And it felt like, Jeff, throughout the game, Bruce Pearl said, I'm willing to live with even an and 1-2, because it meant they're going to have to earn it at the free throw line. I'm willing to live with them driving to the basket a few times. If they get some more points to the paint as a result, that's fine. But I am not letting the home team make those explosive threes that swing a game in a direction.
Yeah, I mean, as Rob said, they've got a lot of weapons on both ends of the court. That's the beauty of this Auburn team is, and I think they've got some guys that, again, mentally are tough and don't give a shit, right? It starts with Janai Broome, certainly, but, you look at Pettiford and the way he plays and the fearlessness that he shows. Chad Baker-Mazara doesn't care. I mean, we saw him at Duke, even though they lost, like, he loves that moment. So they've got some tough dudes, both mentally and physically. And Alabama's still, I think, trying to figure themselves out. It's kind of late in the year, but I still think.
What do you mean by that?
Well,
what would you still be figuring out if you were them?
I mean, again, you lost, right? So I know it was a long time ago, right? It's been December, January, part of February. You brought back Youngblood. You've been without Darion Reed for a stretch here. Again, Philon's been a little bit up and down throughout the course of the season. He came out like gangbusters and has settled down a little bit. You don't know what to do with Big Cliff, right? He doesn't really fit, but he, obviously he gives you something different, a different dimension that you certainly lacked last year defensively and protecting the rim. But I still think the key to this team is Mark Sears. And is he going to step up and sacrifice more than he has at times? Because, man, when he does and he drives to make people better and he makes the right reads and the right decisions, there aren't 2 or 3 guards better than him in the country. But tonight he didn't do that. He was hunting again. And I think that's the problem sometimes with Mark Sears. Instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to drive to kick because my teammates are going to get easy shots when I do that. Sometimes, especially when he's frustrated early, I think he pushes it instead of saying, hey, you know what, may not be my night.
So I agree with you on the Mark Sears thing. I think a lot of that credit for his frustration needs to go to Auburn. One, sure. Denver Jones is a terrific on-ball defender. 2, like the Auburn's game plan is basically run you off of the 3-point line and go deal with the fact that you got Janai Broome and Dylan Cardwell and Chaney Johnson waiting around the rim. And Alabama's whole thing is we're going to shoot threes or drive to the basket. It ends up being a matchup defensively that I think works out really well for Auburn. But the one thing I do want to disagree on is I think Alabama knows who they are, right? And they're a team that has been the same kind of team for the last 4 years since Nate Oates got there. And this year, they're a little bit more, we're going to crash the glass. We're going to take advantage of the fact that we got Cliff Amore and we got Mohamed Diabate and we got some of these athletes that can get to the basket. We're going to be more of finish around the rim, get offensive rebounds, spray out for threes, and they've been kind of in the past where it's drive and kick and look for somebody open. I think the fact that they are 21-4 overall right now and 10-2 in this SEC, which is just so ridiculously tough, is proof of that. And losing at home to this Auburn team, like this version of Auburn, I don't think that there's any. I don't think it says anything about you beyond the fact that you're not quite as good as the best team in college basketball right now. That's the only. That's where I'm at with Alabama. Like at some point, you kind of just have to tip your cap and say, okay, that team right there, that's the best team in college basketball, and they have a very real chance to win a national championship. That I think that they've kind of the big addition has been Youngblood because he's kind of helped. He's added another shooter. He's added another defender. He's been a little bit more switchable, and they can pace and space it a little bit more than they have in the past. But I mean, it's Auburn, man. Like this Auburn team. What was the stat? They've played 8 of the top 10 teams in America right now, right? Or there's 7 of the top 10 teams in America, and then they're going to go play Texas A&M, and they still got Alabama again, and they're sitting here at 23-2. How many teams in the history of the sport could do that? I think they're just that good.
They're not overwhelming. Yes, you're right. And you look at them, and they're not overwhelming. So that's the most impressive thing of Auburn is because, again, they're doing it. You could tell, like the chemistry's there. The fact that, even Janai doesn't mind when maybe he has an off game and somebody else has a big-time game. Like, when you're winning, it's a lot easier to do that and buy in. And they've won. I guess they've won early when I'm not even sure they expected to come out of the gates like they did this year.
How could you have after the plane incident? I don't think they knew what they were going to be against Houston. But what they were that night encapsulates their season. Because on that night, who broke the game open? Tahad Pettiford. Tonight, when Alabama tied the game, Rob, who comes down? And this was your favorite moment of the game. Take me through you watching this because you explained it better than I will. Because I watched it. It was, for me, it was the defining moment of the game. Even though Youngblood came back down and hit a 3, then Baker Mazar. That moment snapped a 4-minute drought without a made field goal for Auburn, who scored 94 in the game. Take me through it.
Yeah, so Auburn was up 63-50, right? And for the first time, Alabama started to get a rhythm. They go on that 10-0 run. Auburn pushes it back to 5. Then Alabama finally gets the game tied to 65-65. They have the ball, and Auburn ends up getting a stop. And it's thrown ahead to Tahad Pettiford. He's on a 1-on-5 fast break. For the people listening on Sirius XM, I'm doing air quotes here. It's a fast break. And he pulls up from like 24 feet on the wing and bangs home a 3 that puts him back into the lead. And we talked with you heard from Bruce about this, but like he was celebrating it. He's like, that's a good shot. It would have been dumb for him to go to the basket. It's like, no, Bruce, what would have been the smart thing to do was like slow it down, wait for your teammates to get you. Nah, let it fly. Like that's just kind of who they are, that confidence, that swagger. And I think that was a tone setter because then after that, Pettiford had the and one going to his right. He had another one going to his left. He was able to kind of get some of his he had Janai Broom on a roll another time. That got him going a little bit, and that's what ended up winning the game for Auburn was the plays that he made down the stretch. And it all stemmed from the fact that nobody cared when he shot a 1-on-5 3 with 27 seconds left on the shot clock.
Jeff, before we get to the Bruce Pearl interview, I do want to get this point in. So you're talking about now a 23-2 Auburn team. When I look at their SEC schedule, right, their next 3 games are at home. Arkansas, Georgia, Ole Miss. Let's face it, on paper, they're going to be sturdy favorites in those games and should win those games. I know you could always slip up, but let's just assume, for the sake of argument, they're 26-2. Then at Kentucky, at A&M. I'd even be willing to give them a loss and be 27-3 in one of those games. I don't think they will, but then they host Alabama. And they just beat Alabama on the road, so who's to say that they can't be, 28-3, right? If this team were to run through the SEC tournament, run through the NCAA tournament, and win the national championship, I think we need to start talking, Jeff Goodman, about the fact that there's a real shot that we could be talking about one of those types of teams if they did this in a historic SEC.
All right, Fanta, you're getting ahead of yourself here. You're getting ahead of yourself here calling them SEC champs and national champs, SEC tournament champs. This is a league that is.
For the record, I don't think they're going to win the SEC tournament. I think they actually could bow out early, but I do think they'll win the national championship.
I mean, they've been the best team, but we know how the tournament goes. So yes, The thing that they have going for them is what? Is they're a terrific shooting team with maybe the best big man in the country and a defense that travels. So there's not anything you can look at and say it's a major hole in their game. They can win, as Rob said, they can win games in every different way you can imagine. That's the beauty of them. But again, and I think Bruce would even admit this. Now, maybe after tonight, he changes his tune a little bit, at least, inwardly. I still don't think there's a huge gap here between Auburn and some of these other teams. I know they're winning these games, and I know they just won in Tuscaloosa fairly convincingly, but I still don't think there's a huge gap here between Auburn and some of these other, top 10 teams.
I'm playing a little devil's advocate, Rob. I'm playing a little devil's advocate. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, can I just say one thing real quick, and then we can get to the interview? It's too early right now to say that Auburn could be one of those kind of teams, but it's rare that a team puts themselves in the position in mid-February to be able to make a run and be in that conversation. And if Auburn makes the run, They can be in that conversation, and they've placed themselves in a position to have not just a good year, but like a historically great kind of season if this thing kind of continues, and we'll see if it ends up doing it. And if it does, we're going to be right there in San Antonio covering it, talking all about it. You'll be in Nashville covering it, Jeff. So you better be rooting for it, man. Come on, what are we doing?
No, I'm excited for it. I can't wait to go to Nashville for the SEC tournament. And I think this league is absolutely terrific. But, as we've seen, some of these teams, and we'll talk about it later in the show, some of these teams have fallen off a little bit in the SEC that we were saying how deep they are. And the Oklahomas and the Georgias are kind of maybe showing their true colors here a little bit.
Yeah, and I would almost set this as a guarantee. There's going to be a team that loses in the SEC quarterfinals. It's going to end up being the best thing that ever happened to them. They're going to get to sleep in their own beds for a few extra nights, and they're going to go deeper in the NCAA tournament, maybe deeper than a team that makes the SEC final that's not named Auburn or Alabama. All right, let's talk to Bruce Pearl, who joined us from his car again. We've been doing these Bruce Pearl victory interviews all season long. Yes, he's a very safe driver, but he's also the guy at the top of the sport right now. How about a pair of 1v2 wins 17 years apart with two different schools? Only coach that can say that in the sport, and we got the exclusive with him. Bruce Pearl, how did your team just pull out a win in the college basketball game of the year on the road in Tuscaloosa? Hostile atmosphere, you find a way. How did you do it?
I didn't do anything, John, man. I didn't do a thing. These guys did it. You know what? My coaching staff had a great game plan. We made shots early in each half to send a message that we were here to try to get a great road win and beat a great team. And it was just like everybody contributed. And we acted like we were the number one team in the country.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think until tonight, Bruce, I was still skeptical that you guys were the clear-cut number one team in the country. Now I'm in. Now I'm all in. When you go on the road against your in-state rival now and do what you did in Tuscaloosa against a really, really good team, maybe a more talented team than you guys, I think it showed that, hey, there's no doubt there can't be a doubt in anybody's mind. What did this say about this team going forward as the favorites to cut down the nets this year?
Well, I think, Jeff, because it's the body of work, I would agree with you. I mean, I think because of the body of the work and so many great teams that we played and the success we've had, I think we are the number one seed right now. Now, I don't know that we're the best team. I mean, there's great teams out there, but I think we should be ranked one because of the body of the work. And, but we got a long way to go. I asked the guys after the game, we got to get better. We got to stay healthy. We got to go back to Auburn tonight, get there about 9:00 and go out for about an hour or two and get back home. And let's get ready for Arkansas. It's all about the maturity of how we take care of our bodies and how we embrace the grind. Look, Arkansas comes in Wednesday. Cal knows they need a big win. They're as talented as anybody in our league. And so that's how we keep it going. We just respect our opponents. We prepare like the number one team in the country. We act like we're the number one team in the country. And if we keep doing that, we will be the number one team in the country.
Bruce, I think the single best recruiting pitch that you have for any guard in America right now is to show him the shot from Tahad Pettiford after Auburn tied the game up, right? You blow a 13-point lead. Coleman Coliseum is rocking, and Tahad Pettiford, it's a 1-on-5 break, and he pulls up from like 25 feet on the wing right there in front of your bench, and he hits it. And I know I've asked you about this before. I know the way you think about it. You're sitting there watching him put that up like, yup, that's a good shot. Let's go, Tahad.
Yep. Yeah, it is. The thing you got to worry about with that one was if he misses, then they bang us in transition because they're so fast. But I don't want him second guessing. He was open. That shot right there, Jeff, was better than if he tried to drive the ball in transition, take it in amongst the trees, pray that the officials are going to call a foul when he's on the floor. That was a smart play. Go take a clean shot instead of a contested shot.
All right, so
I love it, man. Hold on. I love it. It's a 105 break at 25 foot, and that's a smart play. Like, how? Come on, man. Sign me up. Look, I might have a year eligibility left, Bruce.
You know what? It's almost like at the end of the game there when Janai was struggling for the foul line. There was discussion about whether or not we should sub him out. If Chad Baker-Mazara wasn't fouled out, maybe I would have done sub Chad. But I'm gonna roll my big man. I'm rolling with Janai, and I didn't take him out. So sometimes you just got to roll with your players, and I think the kids appreciate my trust in them.
hey, Bruce, I was there in 2008 when you went to Memphis as the number 2 team and beat John Calipari's Memphis Tigers. Today, obviously, you beat the number 2 team in the country. Which was more gratifying? And why?
It's a great question. Obviously, Memphis played for the national championship and lost in overtime to that Kansas team. Tennessee, put a loss on Memphis and that was a great team. That was Derrick Rose's team. That was an unbelievable, talented team. That game mattered in the state of Tennessee. Jeff, they're very similar because of playing in Alabama right now and how much that game matters, to us. I would say because it's a league game and it has implications for a conference championship, I'd say this one probably. I'd give this one the edge. Bruce,
We appreciate you. What are you going to do when you get back home tonight now? What are you going to do?
Well, I haven't been in the lake house since Christmas, before Christmas. It's been a grind. But we don't play Arkansas until Wednesday. The guys get the day off tomorrow. It was a little shorter ride to the lake house than it was back to Auburn. And so I'm all by myself. And I've got this shit-eating grin on my face. I'm going to eat some kosher barbecue. I'll probably answer a few phone calls. And I'll wake up tomorrow morning with that same shit-eating grin.
Really good. Shit-eating grin is how Bruce Pearl put it. I mean, Jeff, you've covered this guy for a long time. It's not like he just discovered it because he took Auburn all the way to the Final Four in 2019. But when you look at Bruce Pearl's career, where do you put him? How would you categorize what he's done?
I mean, he's won everywhere he's been. And I think one of the things about Bruce early on in his career was, okay, he coaches effort and toughness and all that, and his guys just play harder than everybody else. And now I think when you talk to people in the coaching community, a lot of the guys who go up against him, they'll say, like, he's become a really, really good X's and O's coach. And that's the biggest change. I mean, what he's done, I think, is probably second to Scott Drew and what he's done at Baylor since I've been covering this sport. Because Auburn was a complete graveyard when he took it over. It was atrocious. Nobody wanted that job. Jeff Lebo, Tony Barbee, it had been run into the ground. And, you thought, okay, Bruce Pearl did it at Tennessee, but he's not going to be able to do that at Auburn. He's going to get his butt kicked by, the John Calipari's of the world and everybody else in that league. And instead, now he's the one who's flipped it. And he's the one running that league. And right now, he's got the best team in the entire country.
It's amazing. Rob, let me get your quick reaction off this before we break. The NCAA Selection Committee's top 6 team reveal. It came out earlier today, and as we're watching it, they go, yeah, Auburn's 1, Alabama's 2, Duke is 3. Bubba Cunningham couldn't say the name. Florida is 4. It was pretty funny. Florida's 4, Tennessee's 5, and Texas A&M 6. Rob, 5 of the top 6 were from the same conference, the Southeastern Conference. Like, it's just... I thought it would happen, but then it actually did, Rob.
Yeah, and it wasn't something that was really all that surprising. I think we all kind of saw stuff like this happening because of what the SEC did in the non-conference portion of the schedule, where all of their teams' metrics look so good. So even if you're beating like a South Carolina right now, it still looks like a good win on your resume. So the cream always rises to the top, and a rising tide lifts all ships. And however, whatever other cliches you want to throw out there, we all kind of saw this one coming. I don't know if they have 5 of the best teams in America, but they have 5 of the top 6 profiles in America right now.
Who would you take, Jeff, after Auburn? I know you might still take Alabama. Maybe you'll take the team that beat Auburn last week. Bruce Pearl certainly said it when we asked him, who would you take? And he said Florida or Duke. So in the SEC, who's the second best team in this league that you trust?
Florida. For me, it's the Gators. I trust their guards. I trust their guards collectively. And now, listen, they got the big kid come back today. Hanglogden played 20 minutes today. So I think with him coming back, that Dauster's probably making fun of how I pronounce his name. I'll just call him Big Micah. How's that? Big Micah. But my man came back and played 20 minutes today. And again, they're still down a couple bigs that they'll get back, but they got a lot of dudes on this team right now. They find ways to win. They find ways to win shorthanded, no problem.
And they got an All-American in Mr. Clayton, who's been absolutely phenomenal. Up next, we head to the Big Ten, where Illinois looks fantastic early on in Champaign. But a Hall of Famer may have had some other plans with a little bit of history at stake. Plus, a top 20 showdown at Mackey Arena. Purdue, they rarely, if ever, lose at Mackey. Wisconsin was visiting them, and since 2015, the Badgers entered 1-6 at Mackey. What happened? We'll get to all that and more on the Field of 68 after dark.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season.
That's
we'll be using
professional
BetMGM
team,
lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today. College basketball fans, are you ready to take your hoops game to a new level? Whether you're a seasoned bettor or just trying to win your March Madness office pool, Rhythm is here to give you the edge this season. With data-driven predictions for every single college basketball game left on the schedule, Rhythm helps you maximize your bets. And as March Madness kicks off, Rhythm's insights will help you spot those plucky Cinderellas that you know are going to shake up the NCAA tournament. But that's not all. When Selection Sunday rolls around, let Rhythm's AI-powered bracket generator do the heavy lifting for you. This is the same AI tool that performed 35% better than the average ESPN bracket last year. And here's the best part. Rhythm pairs perfectly with our Field of 68 expert analysis, giving you the 1-2 punch that you need for the rest of the college basketball season. So don't wait. Download Rhythm today and get ready to see college basketball and your betting results in a whole new light.
Welcome back to the Field 68 After Dark. We head to the Big Ten. John Fanta, Jeff Goodman, Rob Dauster. 8.5 minutes to go. Illinois, Michigan State, competitive. Illinois does not score a point in the final 8 minutes and change. Michigan State beats the Illini 79-65, and in doing so, Tom Izzo becomes the Big Ten Conference wins king. Most wins in Big Ten play in the league's history with 354, passing Bob Knight. Congrats to Coach Izzo. Jeff, what on earth happened to Illinois tonight?
I mean, it was on both ends of the court. They were playing so well offensively, getting a ton of offensive rebounds, making shots, and then defensively, it was a combination that they were playing well, but Illinois could not make a shot down the stretch. It didn't like the last 8.5 minutes of the game. But I just think this Michigan State team doesn't have a star. We know that. They're not the most talented team, although I think they're more talented than we gave them credit for when we saw them back in the Champions Classic back in November. And part of that is Jace Richardson. Part of that is Trey Holman played very, very well tonight. Fears has gotten better. But I thought it was the bigs down the stretch. Jackson Kohler was a monster. Cooper was pretty good. Mm-hmm. They were all over the glass. They looked like men. And frankly, down the stretch, like Illinois looked like boys. You know, even like like Will Riley. You know, I don't know what he weighs, but those guys were pushing him around to get offensive boards and clear space and get putbacks. And really, they had their way in the paint, you know, in the final 10, 12 minutes or so against the Illini. So this was a hell of a win because a lot of people were kind of questioning, all right, Michigan State, they had that easy schedule in the front half of the Big Ten. Now they're going to get exposed, and that started to be the case a little bit. And if they got blown out tonight, that would have kind of furthered that whole mantra. But this is a big one for Izzo, certainly for Michigan State and for, their seed to kind of stay up there right now and maybe get a good seed come Selection Sunday.
Well, Michigan State needed it after losing 3 of their last 4, and you got to give credit to Jackson Kohler, 23 and 10, made 4 threes, doubled his career. I think he had 8 threes coming in his career, and he made 4 of them tonight. A couple of big offensive rebounds there. I thought it was a really impressive performance on that end for Michigan State. But to me, the story of this game, it feels like there's a lack of leadership on this Illinois team. And the reason why I say that is you mentioned they didn't score the last 8 minutes, 29 seconds. They missed 19 straight shots, guys. 19 straight shots. After they got Michigan State in the bonus, 12 of those 19 shots were threes. A lot of them were settles. Some of them were good looks, but a lot of them were settles. They missed 4 layups or dunks. They missed the front end of a 1-on-1. And then they let that offensive struggle carry over onto the defensive side of the floor. And yes, you're right, Goodman. We're talking about a team that has like senior big guys dealing with a team that has freshman big guys, and you can kind of see the strength kind of weigh out. But I thought that Illinois really there's no other way to say it other than choking down the stretch of that game, had a lot to do with a lack of leadership on that team. And it feels like there's nobody that is going to kind of grab them by the scruff of the neck and say, listen, we're not doing this. We're not settling for these step back threes. You're not taking 1-pass threes with 23 seconds left on the shot clock. We're going to try to get the ball in the paint. We're going to try to get a paint touch. We're going to try to get kick out threes. Maybe, just maybe, we'll find a way to be able to get Morris Johnson rolling to the basket. Maybe, just maybe, we're going to let this 6'8" athletic Will Riley, future lottery pick, find a way to be getting drives to the rim. It did not feel like they were ready for that kind of a moment, and Michigan State certainly was. And, I think Brad Underwood kind of recognized some of that. He's been tweaking the lineups. Trey White didn't play tonight. Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn played 3 minutes. It just feels like
continues in Champaign.
Yep, the talent is there, right? But it feels like finding the group where these pieces fit the way that they need to fit has been something that Brad has been struggling with for the last month. And part of it was injuries. Part of it was the flu bug that went through. Part of it was mono, whatever it was. They just have not found a way to be able to get everybody on the same page at the same time. How was Kyle Boswell taking 2 shots on a night like this? There's a level of leadership there that I think is missing on this Illinois roster.
Where's Trey White? Where'd he go? Is he just
I talked about it the other night. So I think what the new
the latest tinkering that Brad Underwood is doing is putting all of his shooters on the floor. He wants to be able to shoot all these threes, but when he has guys that aren't shooters, they're the ones that are left open by other teams. So they're the ones that are shooting these threes. So
Okay.
yeah, Hamrikis, Ivasic, Yakashonis, Boswell, Jake Davis, and Will Riley are your best perimeter shooters. So now they're doing the pick and roll, pace and space thing with nothing but good shooters out there. And you saw how that went tonight. Not great.
I smell something else. Yeah, I smell something
smell?
else with this. He's averaging close to double figures. Where did he go? Something's awry here. He didn't even play a second in the game. We all know what this could mean. I'm not going windhorse here, but I'm thinking about it. You shot 7 for 33 from 3. Don't tell me a guy who scores around double figures a game couldn't have helped you a little bit in the game. And how does Kai Boswell, to Rob's point, how does he only take 2 shots? It's February 15th, Jeff. I'm tired of hearing about what the what-ifs are. They lost at home to a team that's good, a team that sometimes plays great, but it's not like Michigan State's loaded with these offensive options to put up close to 80 points on Illinois. They made 5 threes in the entire game. Look, Izzo's done a terrific job. Michigan State deserved to win the game, and they locked up Illinois' offense down the stretch. But do not tell me that Illinois has figured out this different way of playing, and it's all part of the tinkering process. It's mid-February now. Enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't
listen,
disagree.
that's part of the problem. Part of the problem is, again, when you're doing this in mid-February, how much confidence Rob Dauster, he's ridden the roller coaster with the Illini fans. How much confidence can you have at this point? Like, you're on it, you're off it, you're on it, you're off. You don't know. I mean, poor Trevor Valise. Like, this guy can't sleep anymore. He literally can't sleep because of the Illini this year.
He's our social producer for those listeners who are thinking, I listen to this show, but no, Trevor and Dagan do it all for us. Meanwhile, Jeff, I want to pay this off before we get to Purdue, Wisconsin, which is next. I'm going to tee up Rob. I do want to get your thought on Tom Izzo passing Robert Montgomery Knight for the all-time Big Ten Conference wins record.
I mean, this guy is just a treasure. You know, obviously, we know what he's done for this program, right? Taking over this program from Judd Heathcote. The pride he has in this Michigan State program, because he could have gone to the NBA several times, guys. Several times he turned down NBA jobs in his prime to stay at Michigan State. And again, you can see it, the emotion this guy has for his players, and the way he treats his players, and the way he'll go at his guys and they'll go right back at him. And they have that type of relationship. He's an old school guy, right, who's going to hold his players accountable, but they're going to be able to put their arm around him after the practice, after the game, after they're yelling and screaming at each other. But this guy's one of the greatest to ever do it. And the other part is he's done it clean his whole career. You know, I remember saying this. I remember criticizing when I was younger, Tubby Smith at the end of his Kentucky tenure, and being real critical that he couldn't get top players. And later on, I was actually at a cancer benefit in Columbia, South Carolina, and I apologized to him. I said, Tubby, like, that's my bad, man. Like, I was too young. I didn't understand that, like, not everybody was playing on the same playing field. Well, Tom Izzo hasn't played on the same playing field as a lot of other guys, and he's been able to compete at the absolute highest level. He is a workaholic. He never misses a day recruiting. He's out every day in the summer. And, he's frustrated by the way the game's gone. But I'll tell you one thing. I don't think Tom Izzo is retiring anytime soon. I still think he's got a good 5-6 years left in him.
No, and Michigan State has Purdue, and then they're at Michigan next weekend. What a game that will be. Michigan 11-2, Michigan State 11-3, Purdue at 11-4, Wisconsin at 10-4. Rob, the Wisconsin Badgers go into Mackey and beat Purdue 94-84. They were 1-6 at Mackey since 2015 entering the game. John Tonje goes off in this game for 32 points, and Klesmit pours in 17. What did Wisconsin show the nation?
I think you saw one of the most impressive offensive performances that we've seen so far this season, what Wisconsin was able to do. They were 20 for 22 from inside the arc, guys. They were able to get wherever they wanted. And I think a lot of that is by design with what Greg Gard has kind of done with this offense. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for kind of revamping what Wisconsin basketball is. They're not this slow down pace, play 360th in pace, try to get as minimal number of possessions as you can, run the swing offense. No, what they're doing is they're putting 5 out. They're spacing the floor. They got big guys in Stephen Crowell and Noah Winter that can step out. And they're allowing guys like John Blackwell, like John Tanji, just kind of go out there and make plays and play off the bounce. And Tanji was, we talk about transfer portal identification, right? Like he was a perfect fit for what they need. A big, powerful wing that can get wherever he wants, that can draw fouls, that is efficient. And I will say this too, right? I think a lot of this says something about Purdue and the fact that they're missing bodies in and around the rim and kind of missing a rim protector. But I think that one bad week in December for Wisconsin is kind of blinding us to the fact that this is one of the best offensive teams in the country. And Fanta, we talked about this the other day, right? When you look at past teams that have won national titles, every single one of them, except for UConn in 2014, was ranked in the top 21 heading into the tournament in Ken Palm's adjusted offensive efficiency rankings. Every one of them except for 3 were ranked in the top 31 of Ken Palm's adjusted defensive rankings. The 3 that weren't: 2009 UNC, 2015 Duke, and 2021 Baylor. All 3 of those teams were elite offensively and top 40-ish kind of defenses, right? Mm-hmm. And when we did this little exercise on the DTF podcast the other night, we had 8 teams that qualified for those 2 rankings, right? The one that we kind of gave a pass for was Alabama because they're elite offensively and just pretty good defensively. Well, Wisconsin is really close to checking a lot of those numbers. They're top 6 right now in adjusted offensive efficiency. They're top 40 in adjusted defensive efficiency. And they look like a team that is going to be difficult to guard because of what they can do on that end of the floor. And Jeff, you said this earlier today. I don't know if there is a team in the sport that we have kind of overlooked more than Wisconsin right now. They're the highest rated team on KenPom in the Big Ten. They have won 12 of their last 14 games. They're 10-4 in the Big Ten, but they've won 10 of their last 12 in the Big Ten. And they got a guy that can go out and win you games all by himself in John Tanji. Jeff, why are we not giving Wisconsin? And honestly, this falls on us. We said a lot of the conversation for college basketball. Why are we, Field of 68, not talking enough about Wisconsin?
I don't know, but damn it, putting on my Badgers hat and I'm gonna let's go. Like they are fun to watch, though. They're fun to watch. They're not as sexy. They don't have the personality of maybe that 2015 Wisconsin team that had the best offense in the country then and lost in the national title game, right? They don't have Kaminsky and Decker and Nigel Hayes and some of these guys. They don't have those big personalities, but what they do have is one of the best offenses in the country right now. So much fun to watch. They can shoot it. Like you said, their bigs can step out and make shots. They can get up and down the court. They don't play slow. So I think they're just kind of I don't know. I don't think we've given them the credit, even though they got off to a good start, because I think we felt like they were going to come down to earth. They went through a little bit of a rough patch, but they've rebounded from it and showed us they're for real. They've got a lot of really good wins this year, and this is a Wisconsin team that wouldn't shock me to see them in the second weekend or maybe even in the Elite Eight this year.
Not at all.
And I think part of it too, Fanta, not to cut you off real quick, but I think part of it too is that since the Arizona win back in, November, early November, right? They don't really have a loud victory, right? Like beating Pitt, that's good. Beating Iowa, good. Winning at the rack, good win. Beating Ohio State, looks good on the metrics. Beating Indiana, great. They don't have something that is loud that is going to give us a reason to kind of get excited about it. Well, you know what? Putting up 94 on this Purdue team in that building, that's loud.
2 years ago, Wisconsin averaged 65 points per game, just over 7 threes per game. Last year, they averaged 75 points per game, again, 7 threes per game. You lose A.J. Storr, you lose Chucky Hepburn, you lose Tyler Wall. You're thought of as an afterthought in the Big Ten in the preseason. They were picked in the back half. They're averaging 81 points per game, 10 threes per game. They're leading the country, could break an all-time college hoops record at 84% from the free throw line. They counter your defense in a variety of ways. They could beat you with 4, 5, 6 different concepts. And Tanjay, man, that guy is a bucket. Up next, we head to New Jersey, where the absurd happened in the Big East. Plus, life in the Big 12, a battle at the top, and a little bubble watch. This is After Dark.
There is no sport in America that is more difficult to follow than college basketball. It can be overwhelming. That's where the Field of 68 Daily comes into play. The Daily is your go-to source for injury updates, recruiting news, and transfer portal additions that actually matter. For just $50 a year, get access to the same information that your favorite team's coaching staff is subscribed for. Quality content can be hard to find in the college basketball space. The Daily is here to help you with that. Would you be surprised to find out that the Field of 68 is home to more than 35 podcasts? More than 25 team-specific podcasts that are hosted by the people that know what fans want the most. The Goodman and Humble podcast, the DTF podcast, the A10 Insider podcast, and the Mountain West podcast. But wait, there's even more. The Field of 68 will be launching the ACC Insider podcast this year. Subscribe to this channel and come along for the ride.
Welcome back to Field 68 After Dark. Still got a lot to get to, and we will have the afters as well to get to everything else in college basketball. Here we go. A game in Newark, New Jersey at the Prudential Center. This was not a marquee game on the slate heading into the day because the Seton Hall Pirates entered the game having won just one time since December the 5th. They were 1-12 in the Big East. They are now 2-12. After trailing by 7 points with 36 seconds left in regulation, and mounting an improbable comeback just to force overtime on a Dylan Adewusu 3. Then down by 5 with a minute to go in overtime, UConn's unable to get the basketball in bounds in their backcourt. A steal and a game-winning bucket by Scotty Middleton seals an absolute shocker. UConn drops to 9-5 in the Big East. Really say goodbye to those regular season title hopes. They were already waning. 69-68, the Pirates shot Connecticut. Rod Dauster. What do you make of this?
The way that they lost is something that should be considered unacceptable, right? Those late game turnovers, the inability to get the ball in out of bounds, and frankly, like I've gone back and forth on how hard I want to go here, right? Because I think on the one hand,
don't be soft, Rob. Do not be soft.
That was a soft performance from UConn, right? And I think that anybody watching that game could see that. On the other hand, this is a team where they are dealing with the weight of expectations that come from another team that won back-to-back national titles. And let's be frank, this team is just not that good, right? They are like a 9-10 seed kind of a program right now, kind of a team right now. And, it feels like a lot of what we've been saying, at least what I've been saying on the Top Dogs pod is, wait until Liam gets back and then we can get a real sense for it. Or wait until Haas is healthy and then we can kind of get a real sense for what this team can be. Wait for this, wait for that. And I think the truth is that this group is just not tough enough as a whole, physically or mentally, and does not have the talent level that we've come to expect out of a UConn program. And I know it's going to make a lot of people happy that they have a night where they can kind of dance on Dan Hurley's grave, so to speak, and celebrate the one guy that has kind of been unafraid to be polarizing and come out here in the press and in press conferences and say whatever the hell he wants to say. I don't think he cares if people don't like him, but because of the way that he's kind of handled wins at Creighton, he's going to have to sit there and kind of take the people getting their swinging on him here. But I do think that Eventually this thing will get turned around. I don't know if it's going to be this year. I keep kind of telling myself, right, Jeff? Telling myself, like, this is the way this thing is kind of going. A lot of these pieces are going to be around for maybe another year. And maybe this is just them getting ready and the learning curve that they have to get to be able to, see Jalen Stewart and solo ball and Terrace Reed and even Aiden Mahaney next season have a chance to go out and win a Big East championship. But if you're going to play like this team doesn't have a shot to do anything like that. And that was, again, an unacceptable way that game ended. And honestly, unacceptable the way that it started as well.
Yeah,
Goodman?
I mean, for me, again, it was shocking to watch the end of the game and the lack of execution and the inbounds passes, especially with like Alex Caravan and Liam McNeely making those passes, right? Like, you think like Caravan's going to find a way. Now, again, somebody slipped on one of them, but the baseball pass was atrocious. The execution was really bad. They had the game won in regulation and in overtime multiple times. This is, like you said, they're a good team. They're not a great team. The question I have is this team capable of falling into like first four territory? Now they have Villanova next, which you would think they win at home. But if they don't, then you're talking about them really being in first four territory, because then they go to the Garden in a game that we'll be at next Sunday afternoon where they play St. John's. And right now, again, their confidence is shaken. Like, Caravan was better today, but he's still not the same player that he was at the start of the season or last year. There's more pressure on him. Again, I feel like they've got nothing. Their bench gave them nothing. And it's just a lot of their guys just haven't made the jump that we thought they were going to make this year. And then, Aiden Mahaney's struggling, obviously. He can't even get in the floor again today. But going back to what you said about Hurley, here's the one thing I will say is, like, listen, if you're going to dish it out, you better be able to take it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest thing
Absolutely.
I would say to Dan Hurley, is like, you're gonna act that way and puff your chest out, then you got to be able to take the shit when people come after you and you lose to Seton Hall. And I think he did it today. I mean, obviously it was against his former program, against a guy that he loves, and Shaheen Holloway, so it was a little bit easier to do so. But again, I think, will he be humbled a little bit? I don't know. I mean, probably not, knowing Dan. I think he'll figure it out and flip it, and they'll be really good again next year.
No, he's never going to be humbled, but like and when you win back-to-back championships, like, you probably don't deserve to get humbled. But I will say this, like, he's going to have to take the hits, and there's going to be a lot of hits based on the way that this game ended. I just want him to store every single one of those in his head and make sure to show it to all these guys on the team, because that's the kind of stuff that's going to motivate him. So everybody that's saying something mean to Dan Hurley right now or tweeting about him, just remember, he doesn't forget that stuff. Like, that's going to sit there driving him insane and motivating him for the next 2 years while he gets this thing rebuilt. I'm not worried about it. UConn will be back.
I mean, he could be coaching Luca right now. Luca.
Yeah, I don't know if he wants to do that whole brigade either. It also means he has to deal with okay. I'll give my 12-second take on it.
Go ahead.
UConn missed in the transfer portal. The standard was created when he comes back to UConn and says, I want to win a third national championship. When you say that, it gets created. So we're talking about
how about Fanta when he said, why aren't we ranked number one in the preseason? Remember, he thought they were slighted.
Right. And what I was just say is, when that's the standard that's created, then there's pressure put on you. And those kids, like Alex Caravan hits a wall, but I just think UConn fans, I know you want to win another one. You're also harsh on your guys. Like, if you win a tournament game or two, if you make the Sweet 16 with this team, it still should be a good year. And I just think there's a lot of people around that program right now who are like feeling, they built this monster pressure. And you have to accept the fact that you're not that team. You're just not. Teams like last year don't grow on trees. All right, let's go quickly. Big 12. Battle for the top spot in the league. Jeff, it's crazy to think Houston comes into this league and they're very much in place to win it. both years that they've been in it. They're 13-1. They rallied past Arizona. What'd you see from the Cougars?
Milos Uzan's been so good lately, and he was not very good back in November and maybe early December. But, as we should expect from Kelvin Sampson, he's going to figure out a way, right? He's going to find a way to coach these guys, and he's one of the best coaches in our sport right now. Hall of Famer. He's led now Houston to 10 straight 21-win seasons at Houston. Again, another program that was in the dumps when he took it over. But, I don't know if they're capable of winning the whole thing this year. But what he's done with this group, which, again, he still hasn't gotten some of those scores really going. Cryer got going today, but, Arsenault still hasn't given him what I thought he would, right? Like, that was the guy that I kind of had the X factor of, like, if Arsenault hits it, yeah, then they could be a team that could win 6. I don't think they can win 6.
I think they are. I think that they can win 6 because of the guy that you mentioned at first, Milos Uzan. Here's what he's done the last 8 games, averaging 13.8 points and 5 assists. Here's what he's done the last 4 games, 15 points, 5.5 assists. 1 turnover in the last 145 minutes of basketball that he has played.
It's awesome. He's great.
Great win. Quick bubble watch here. There are a bunch of teams in action today. We saw Wake Forest get a win over SMU. That was a key victory for Wake. We saw Texas, the Longhorns, get a critical win over Kentucky, albeit shorthanded. But Jeff, Texas was in the first 4 out. Trey Johnson is magnificent. 32 points in this win. We also saw a bunch of bubble teams lose the last 2 nights. Arkansas fell. They fell at Texas A&M. Vanderbilt lost to Tennessee. Georgia lost earlier today to Mizzou. Oklahoma lost, a collapse of a loss. USC, Cincinnati, SMU. Kansas State, Jeff, got buried by BYU. We got about 80 seconds here, and Indiana lost. Carolina did win. Goodman, give me a quick thought on the bubble here. You got like 20 seconds, and then we'll get your quick toast.
Yeah, Wake Forest. I thought Wake Forest got maybe the biggest one of the day. Going on the road for a bubble team and beating another bubble team in SMU. Both teams a little shorthanded, but Steve Forbes needed this one desperately to try to get to the tournament.
Rob, toast somebody. Anybody.
Yeah, Texas got the biggest win of the day for the bubble teams. You knocked off Kentucky. You knocked off a top 3 seed. You took advantage of the fact you were playing a team that was shorthanded. And you know what? They'll look at the losses that you have and recognize who you did not have in those games. The committee's not going to look at the teams that you played and who they weren't playing with. Big win for Texas.
Yeah, it's a huge win for Texas and a big win for Wake Forest to get that one. A couple of teams that had opportunities that just were unable to come through. I'll toast for all of us, and I'll toast Tom Izzo. Toast Tom Izzo for passing Bob Knight, and we got to toast those Auburn Tigers because that was just an exceptional performance on the road in Tuscaloosa. And why not for producer Dagan Hughes? We'll toast Shaheen Holloway and Seton Hall for taking down UConn. That does it for us. The Afters are next. Thanks for tuning in to After Dark.
We're live. It's the Afters.
Hit the chat.
I'm not getting close to any bear.
My career high on the court is 28. All right, it's the Afters here on a Saturday night, soon to be Sunday morning. Dagan Hughes, I'm sure you'll have some questions for us. Get into the YouTube chat. One game we did not talk about yet. We've talked about a bunch of games. But, Rob, Egg Bowl in college basketball. This was a wild game last time they met. Mississippi State took it in overtime. Mississippi State completes the season sweep of Ole Miss, 81-71. And, this is a Miss State team that, frankly, came into the game really needing this because they were 5-6 in the SEC. But, they beat Mississippi. And for Chris Jans, R.J. Melendez goes for 17 points, and the Bulldogs walk away a winner. Any thoughts
Zeke
on
Mayo hurt, guys. Zeke Mayo's down grabbing his knee, I think. I think it's bad. Doesn't look great.
Yeah,
Little
that
self
doesn't look good.
over.
As I'm firing it up,
Really
that's not good.
Sorry, Fanta. Didn't mean to interrupt, but
Okay, that's okay. We're monitoring it. We're monitoring everything at all times. Rob, thoughts on the top 25 matchup there?
Mississippi State really, really needed that win. They had lost, what was it, 6 of their last 9 coming into this one. I think more than anything else, like this just kind of sums up what SEC basketball is, right? I think both Mississippi State and Ole Miss are second weekend caliber teams. I think they're both kind of in that mix for top 20, top 25 teams in America. And Mississippi State goes on the road and just smacks around Ole Miss after beating them in their own building earlier this season. And, it's Josh Hubbard didn't even really get going the way that we've kind of come to expect Josh Hubbard to find a way to be able to get going. But that's just kind of who this Mississippi State team is at this point. They're tough. They're rugged. They're going to make some of those plays like that. And I think that they match up well with what this iteration of Ole Miss is you see Zeke Mayo walking off there. Hopefully that's just a scare, Goodman.
I think he might have banged knees. I think he just might have banged knees. But it came down a little awkwardly as well. But yeah, hell of a win for Mississippi State. Chris Jans getting the sweep over Ole Miss. They needed it. Not to get in the tournament, but maybe to get off that 8-9 line. Like if you're Chris Jans, you do not want to be on that 8-9 line because let's face it, I think we all can admit there's a gap between those number 1 seeds and the 2s, right? Like Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Duke, and then the next group. I think there's a maybe not significant gap. I mean, there is between Auburn, but the next group, right? The Iowa States, the Texas A&Ms, Tennessee, Florida's in the mix for number 1. I just think there's a gap. So if you're Mississippi State and you're Chris Jans, and the great thing was, again, like Hubbard didn't play well, and you really controlled that game for the most part. And you've now got 2 wins over another team that frankly is going to be right in the same kind of realm as you when they're looking at seeding, I think, for March, for Selection Sunday.
Dagan Hughes, do we have any questions in the chat?
We do. As some are pouring in, but I do want to go back because it was a little rush at the end. Some of the bubble talk.
Let's get back to the bubble talk.
Do some of them. Let's start with Kentucky, Texas. Obviously, big game there in the SEC.
Look, a huge game. I mean, Jeff, we know that Kentucky's shorthanded. No Jackson Robinson. No Lamont Butler. Obviously, still without Kirk Risa. But Texas had to win this basketball game at home because they're 4-8 in the SEC. And Trey Johnson and Tremont Mark combined for 58 points. It's a pivotal win for Rodney Terry.
Yeah, I mean, he had to have it. He's fighting for his job. Obviously, they're going to get in the tournament. They're right on the bubble right now. You're playing, a team at home without their top 3 options at the point guard spot. You better win that game. For Kentucky, I'm worried. I'm worried because this is now, an ongoing issue with Lamont Butler and his shoulder injury. Tough as hell. But again, at what point do you just say, hey, you know what? We got to shut him down for 2 weeks. I think you do that right now. I think you shut him down for 2 weeks and you bring him back maybe at the start of March, get him a week or so, get him 3 or 4 games before SEC tournament, and you get him as healthy as you can. Because ultimately, listen, you're already good right now in terms of, you probably, a 4 seed today, and you're probably going to fall off that 4 line. At the end of the day, you're probably looking at a 5-6 seed if you're Kentucky. And what's been the issue over the last few years? It's obviously the early exits in the NCAA tournament. So even though you've had a spectacular season, you got to try to play for March. You got to try to play for the NCAA tournament. And without Lamont Butler, you're dead man walking. You're not advancing. You're not going anywhere. So get him as healthy as you can.
Yeah, the biggest thing with Kentucky in this game was, I mean, down the stretch, they got beat up on the glass a little bit. There were probably 3 or 4 possessions where Texas got like 3 looks at it in and around the basket because they were more aggressive going to get the rebound and going to get those offensive rebounds. Kentucky couldn't do anything with Trey Johnson. He had 32, like you can see there on the graphic. And none of that stuff is surprising. We know the issues that Kentucky has with the glass. We know the issues that they have getting stops and ending possessions. They are better now metrically on the defensive end than they've looked at different times this season. But they're never going to be a team that wins with their defense. That's just not who they are. They are a team that is going to put up 95, 100 points that you are going to have a nightmare trying to figure out how to stop. And when you don't have Lamont Butler and you don't have Jackson Robinson, who is your starting backcourt, more or less, your best shooter, your best point guard, and you are trying to find ways to be able to run offense at the end, so much of what they were doing was like, all right, we're going to let Amari Williams be our playmaker. And he's good when that's an option that you have, not what you are relying on, right? When you have Kobe Bryant, like even against Tennessee, they won that game because Kobe Bryant hit a couple of ridiculous step backs. But if you are relying on Kobe Bryant making a couple of ridiculous step backs to win games over and over and over again, that's a tough way to be able to make a living, man. And credit to Texas for getting this win. But we buried the lead with this entire story, guys. This line closed at Texas -4.5 at BetMGM. Otega Owe hit a runner from 38 feet to cut the lead to 82 to 78 at the buzzer. Kentucky covered. Good teams win. Great teams cover. Kentucky to the Final Four.
And I texted Stanford Steve, and he said, yep, Monday A block. So bad beats there. We'll be heading down to Austin. To which he then texted me just one word, Akron. They won, but I don't know what happened in the game. They only won by 3. So just know, Zips, we think you're having a great year. But
check it out.
And by the way, Jeff, I mean, quick, very, very quick stop in the MAC. What Coach Gross is doing at Akron, they're 12-0 in the MAC and 20-5.
I know. It's insane. Insane after losing Enrique Freeman. Crazy.
Ridiculous. Life in the Big 12. This was a key bubble game, Jeff. BYU hosting Kansas State. The Wildcats riding momentum into this one. Well, you met BYU tonight in Provo, and BYU wasn't messing around. 80-65, the Cougars come away a winner by 15. This was really never close, Jeff.
No, they jumped on them right away. I mean, again, Kansas State got it to where I think it was 8, maybe midway through the second half, but it was never much of a game. I mean, obviously, we know Kansas State has been one of the hottest teams in the country. They've taken themselves from where they had lost 9 of 10 during one stretch and put themselves back really on the bubble. I mean, they weren't far off entering tonight's game, and that's why this one was so pivotal. You know, they go out, they play at BYU. Now they got next at Utah, a Utah team that is hanging on for this game against Kansas. They're up 2 with 3.5 to go. But, you know, again, Doug McDaniel played well. He shot it well. He scored it well. He had 22. In this one, again, Coleman Hawkins, 2 for 9. They were 6 for 21 as a team from 3. And it's not like BYU shot the hell out of it. They really didn't, but they jumped on them early. And I think Kansas State almost expended too much of their energy to get back into this. And then BYU made some key shots, some kind of wide open, uncontested threes to blow the game back open.
Yeah, look, this was the one that Kansas State could, I'm doing air quotes here, afford to lose, right? We talked about this the other day. It's coming into this game at 13-11, 7-6 in the Big 12. You could probably afford 2 losses and still have a real chance to be able to get in, right? And as of today, they were in our next 4 out. The losses that they could take at BYU, Iowa State at home, right? You lose those 2 games, you still got a decent chance to be able to make a run here if you can win at Utah, beat Arizona State at home, win at UCF, beat Colorado at home, win at Cincinnati. So they still have a chance to be able to get this thing done. And I don't think that there's any shame in losing at BYU the way that BYU has been playing, the kind of crowd that they get. But you got to be able to get your work done with these next 5 games. You need another 5-game winning streak, more or less, if you're at Kansas State right now to be able to have a chance. And you won at Iowa State. You beat Kansas. You beat Arizona. They have the ability to be able to do those things. We'll see if it ends up playing out that way. And if they do, you win your next 5. You got a very real chance to hear your name called on Selection Sunday.
Carolina was a winner today at the Dome. JMA Wireless, it'll always be the Carrier Dome, 88-82. Tar Heels hit 13 threes. We know they've got NC State, Virginia, Florida State, then Miami, Virginia Tech.
Listen to what you just said, though. Like, listen to what you just said. Look at that run that North Carolina has. It baffled me today, Jeff.
I don't want to look at it, Rob.
It baffled me today that North Carolina was playing Syracuse on big ESPN, and it didn't there was no buzz.
Nobody cared.
No hype.
Nobody cared.
Realized like that we need those programs to be back, right? And I do think that North Carolina is going to find a way to be able to get there. I would hope they would, but like Syracuse, man, like what has happened to this program since they got to the ACC? Like this is Syracuse. This is Carmelo Anthony. This is Jim Boeheim. This is the 2-3 zone. This is the Carrier Dome, the RCA, whatever it's called now. And look at where they are. It just, NC State has 2 wins in this conference. 2 wins.
I think part of the problem.
They have 3 wins. Don't short Coach Keats a victory.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're a program right now that didn't have a lot of NIL. It's Red Autry's second year. They had already started to kind of fade under Jim Boeheim, let's be honest. Program wasn't the last few years what it had been. They were fortunate. They made a couple runs in the NCAA tournament, but their ACC production was not nearly what it had been. Talent level wasn't nearly what it had been. And Red Autry took over a program that was floundering a little bit. And without big-time NIL, he's had some difficulty putting it together. I think he'll get one more year to show that he's the right guy. And part of being the right guy right now is getting out in that community and raising enough money and making sure, if you're John Wildhack, the athletic director there, making sure that revenue sharing is going to be in place for you being able to really load up with that roster next year and give him, kind of like we've talked about with Shaheen Holloway. Give those guys the resources to see and be able to evaluate if they are the right guys to lead their respective alma maters. We don't know. I mean, they're playing with a half a deck right now. It's not fair. It's not apples to apples or anything close to that.
No. And I think you're going to see it's interesting in this sport for some of the schools that are having god-awful seasons. They could end up in a better place next year than the ones who are still kind of decent. And their administration says, well, you're hanging in there. Like, do we have to do stuff? Sometimes going all the way to the basement is what it takes to actually start acting like a real program. Just a thought in this sport. Let's talk about Arkansas. Arkansas lost today to Texas A&M. They got off to a nice start, but they fell 69-61. So I do want to run through this here, Rob and Jeff. Rob, I'll start with you on this one. Arkansas has Auburn on Wednesday. Obviously, if they ever pull off what would be a miracle on the road that would totally change everything, but assuming that they don't. Then they host Missouri. They host Texas to round out February before heading to South Carolina. Then Vandy, and then they host Mississippi State. The point, that the remainder of their schedule after Wednesday, there's some gettable games, home opportunities. Like, Rob, where are you with Arkansas here? It's the beauty of being in this league that you do get chances. But, like, after Wednesday, they host Missouri, and then they host Texas. And Jeff and I were talking on the phone earlier. It feels like that's going to be, hey, either you put it together here or it's not happening.
Yeah, they got to get 4 more wins, I think, at this point. 4 more wins to be able to legitimately have a chance to say we can make some noise in the SEC tournament and get ourselves a bid. To be fair, they were in the tournament as of this morning, according to the Fielding the 68 bracket, but that is assuming there's no bid thieves. That is assuming that none of the teams below them find ways to be able to make runs in their specific league tournaments. But John Calipari understands this. Like, I don't know if you guys saw it, but he kind of lit his team up a little bit in the press conference after Texas A&M. I'm paraphrasing here. I don't have the quote in front of me, but he essentially said, like, we got to be able to. It's not good enough to say that we had a chance. It's not good enough to say that we are close, because we are close to being out of the NCAA tournament at this point. And they absolutely had a chance to be able to beat Texas A&M today. But this is just kind of what Texas A&M does. So I don't think that Arkansas is going to go into Neville Arena and beat Auburn. Although I will say the best chance to be able to beat this Auburn team is coming off of a win on the road against Alabama. It's a perfect kind of letdown spot for Auburn to be able to get caught here. So I think you got to get 4 of Missouri at home, Texas at home, at South Carolina, at Vanderbilt, Mississippi State at home. Do I trust Arkansas to be able to do that? Not really.
I think you need 3. I don't think you need 4. I think if they end up going 4 under, okay, so you go 3-3 the rest of the way, and you're 7-11, 4 games under in the SEC. As long as you win a game in the SEC tournament, I think you're okay. I do. I don't know where the bid stealers are coming from, Rob. I just don't know where they're coming from in these leagues. Like the A-10's probably not going to have a bid stealer. They don't have they don't really have an at-large that's locked in. I guess somebody could win the AAC other than Memphis. I don't think somebody's winning the WCC other than St. Mary's or Gonzaga. I just don't see that many scenarios. Maybe
I think the WCC is more open than you're giving it credit for. Washington State's good, Oregon State's good, San Francisco's good, Santa Clara's good. There could very well be a bid stealer there.
Missouri Valley. Yeah, that's interesting.
Could be.
What about Con West?
I hope Drake.
Yeah,
Mount
guys,
West is one.
What about NC State? Like, there's a very real possibility that one of these teams from something like the SEC, like what happens if Oklahoma gets hot? Who knows?
Oh, come on.
Miami won 2 of their last 4. What if the Hurricanes? You never know.
I mean, again,
2 of their last 4.
I think Arkansas gets in. I really do. I think they end up going 3-3 here in their final 6 because it's not overpowering. I mean, they got to beat. They got a whole court at home. They got to beat Missouri and Texas at home, which isn't going to be easy. I think they beat Texas. I don't know if they beat Missouri at home, but I think they beat Texas at home. Then you split against South Carolina and Vandy on the road, and then you got to beat Mississippi State at home. And win one game that you're playing a like team probably early on in the SEC tournament that determines whether you get in. But I'll say this: if it's close. You don't think that selection committee wants John Calipari in Dayton?
Well, hey, what was your theory today? Your hypothetical for what the first 4 could be? UConn, Gonzaga, North Carolina, Arkansas.
UConn, Gonzaga, Carolina, Arkansas. How great would that be? I'd actually watch.
Yep, I would too. It'd be the most watched for forever.
Everybody would. Yes,
everybody would. Gabe Madsden just hit a 3 to become Utah's all-time career three-pointers made leader with 288. Gabe Madsden hits it. Utah is up 7 on Kansas with less than 2 minutes to go in this game. Kansas is now in grave danger of Jeff falling to 8-6 in the Big 12. This has been a disappointment.
This is crazy to me. I mean, this is the number 1 team in the country preseason by a lot of people, right? A lot of people. Dan Hurley had UConn number 1, but I had Kansas number 1. I think a lot of people.
Who did I have number Kansas.
1, Jeff? It wasn't Auburn. It was Alabama. You had Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Which looks a whole lot better than my Kansas pick. The pieces just don't seem to fit. They just. I don't know what it is. I mean, again, we knew like trying to put Hunter, DeJuan Harris, and KJ out there together. And then if you try to even throw Flory in place of KJ, you still don't have good spacing. Like we knew that was going to be the case. But I think I fooled myself into thinking like Zeke Mayo and Rylan Griffin. And I think we just thought, I know I did, that AJ Storr would be a factor and would give him something that they sorely needed, which is a guy that could put the ball on the floor and make a play out the bounce and be a scorer. But he's given him very, very little. And Rylan Griffin hasn't been consistent either.
Look, it's the
Crazy.
issue is, yeah, the issue is just that it's the pieces just don't fit. It's very difficult to be able to put together a cohesive offense when you have a point guard that you can dare to shoot, a four-man that you can dare to shoot, and the guy that you want to play at the three that you spent the most money on when it comes to your transfer portal stuff is a guy that is like a shot-happy gunner in AJ Storr. And I think the AJ Storr recruitment was probably a bad evaluation, right? I don't think that the people at Wisconsin were necessarily that upset to see him not playing for him, seeing as they got John Tonji, who just imagine if John Tonji was on this Kansas team. I'm just saying. But it's the fit is just not there. They are a very, very, very good defensive team that doesn't have the right spacing, the right kind of threat that you need offensively to be able to make it work. And there have been times where it looks like they kind of put something together, getting Flory Badinga in there. But it kind of is what it is. So,
man, I mean, it's Jeff. I just think it's when you look at the roster construction and you look at what they did in the portal, and it looked like in that moment that they crushed it, that they had done as good of a job as anybody, and that they had the perfect blend with the guys back. I mean, I will say, Jeff, and look, these guys are getting paid, so I want to be fair, but when you pay Hunter Dickinson and you bring him in, you expected Jeff to contend for a national championship. And let's face it, this 2-year window of bringing him in over from Michigan in this era, this has been more negatives than positives. It just has been. The standard was high.
Yeah,
They're not meeting
obviously.
it.
No, because again, you look at their individual talent and it's there. Although a lot of people would say hey, KJ Adams and DeJuan Harris came in. They weren't very heavily recruited. They've developed into good players, but how many pros does this Kansas team have? How many pros? How many lockfire pros does this Kansas team have? Did I have any? I mean, I'm not sure they have a single one. People would say Flory Badunga. Maybe. I mean, again, I like Flory a lot. I still want to see how skilled he can become. He better come back for another year. It's really surprising for a guy that we've all said is in the mix, and we followed Sean Miller's lead on this one because he banged this drum while he was on Field of 68. Bill Self being the best coach in college basketball. And you just figure he would be able to fix this and figure it out and get something out of AJ Storr and get more consistency and figure out how the pieces fit together. And it looks like today
here's the problem.
They've regressed. They've
problem
actually regressed.
I don't think losing at altitude at Utah is
come on.
necessarily rest, but
Utah's
because they haven't been
11,
great.
They're 5-8 in the league. Come on.
Yeah,
you're out of your mind.
They choked. But what are we talking about? It's not like this is not Houston going and losing at Utah.
Oh,
this
boy.
is Kansas.
Dude,
this is a
Keith
Kansas
Van
team
Horn isn't walking through the door.
Which is fine, but you lost at Kansas State a week ago. They lost at 13-11 Kansas State a week ago. You're shocked that a team would lose at 13-11 Utah, but it's a regression when you lose at 10-11 Kansas State? This team is just not that good, Jeff. They're just not that good.
Kansas State was
you
the
got
hottest
to
team in the
accept
country.
it.
Kansas State was the hottest
well,
team
maybe
in the
Utah
country.
is now. Just wait. This is going to start. Utah's about to win 6 in a row right here.
I don't think so.
About to go to the hard part with Storr is that he's not like a bad kid, right? It's easy if you bring a kid in and they're he's not a bad kid. The problem is the way that he plays basketball is selfish. And I'm not saying he's a selfish person, but he is a guy that is a volume shooter and a volume scorer that is at his best. When you give him the ball, you kind of get out of the way and you let him go get to his midi, go get to his spot, go pull up. And that is the opposite of what Bill Self wants in a player at that position and a player in that role. And it's why you see when AJ's the most surefire thing in college basketball this year is if AJ Storr makes a jump shot, he's shooting it the next time he touches the ball. And that's just how he's wired as a player, which is fine. There's a lot of guys that are successful doing that. It's not going to work in this Kansas offense with that guy coaching them. It's just not a good fit. It was a bad eval. It happens.
Okay, we're going to get to questions here in a second. I would just say this then. Last year when he lost to Gonzaga in the NCAA tournament, he said, "We missed. I've been mapping out my roster for the last month for next year." He said those words. You can't back-to-back years, blame it on anything other than you're missing. You've swung and missed on some evals, and you're the one who brings the players in. You are. You're the one who brings the players in.
How old is Bill Self now? Bill Self 62.
Yeah. Old
Would
enough
it
to retire.
shock you? All right,
No.
that's what I was gonna ask you. Would it shock you? Now he can move down to Delray Beach, where he's got a place right now, and walk down Atlantic Ave. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. Let's put it this way. I would not be shocked if Bill Self says, "You know what? I'm good. 62. I got more money than
And he's got the heart issue too. Yeah.
We got questions coming in, but that's exactly why when some certain people said Indiana's the best job of the cycle, you can't prematurely say anything.
Right. No. You don't know. You don't know.
We don't know. Chapel Hill and Lawrence could both end up being better.
Yep.
Dagan Hughes.
I just love how Goodman is trying to get every coach to retire. Like that's his biggest question. Dan Hurley's 51 years old. Maybe this is it for
Dan
him.
Hurley's
Maybe
not
this is
going
it
anywhere.
for him. John Shire's 37 years old. He's got Cooper Flagg there. We're number one in the country. Maybe this is it for him. What if he retires?
He should go right after. Right. He should win a title and then retire.
I had Brian Earl at William and Mary earlier this year. And Brian's younger. He's got a very young family. And they ended shoot-around, and the shoot-around didn't go to his liking. He walked up to us. He goes, "Guys, I just want to announce my retirement." And we looked at him like he goes, "Yeah, I'm done." He goes, "We won't win another game this year." They beat Charleston that night. So we love coaches. They crack us up to no end because they think they're going to lose every game, and that's not how it goes. And he's doing a hell of a job.
I'm shocked Goodman didn't say that Shaheen Holloway needs to retire after beating UConn today.
That's a good way to go
Holloway, Dagan Hughes knows this. Shaheen Holloway's not going anywhere. Seton Hall's going to spend like a real high major program next year. You can take that to the bank. And Dagan Hughes will be back at the Prudential Center rooting on his Pirates. Now, Dagan, what do you have?
All right, guys, let's get to some questions from the chat. We had this one in earlier, but we couldn't answer it during the show, so we're going to answer to it now. Josh Carter, thank you for the super chat. How many championships would Pearl have won at Tennessee?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I mean,
at least
one. No, I say maybe one. I mean, I'm not going at least one. But
I don't know.
The better one is.
Do you remember the player that he got in trouble for recruiting?
Yeah, he was my favorite player. Yeah, he was better than Andrew Wiggins in college.
Aaron Craft
better than Wiggins
was better than Andrew Wiggins, according to Jeff Goodman. So just imagine Bruce Pearl with a guy better than Andrew Wiggins. Just think
how many points did Andrew Wiggins score against Stanford in the NCAA tournament in the one game he played?
Did he play? Who missed?
I don't know, he played like 4. He scored like 4 points. He scored like 4 points.
Oh no, it was Embiid. That should have been the warning sign for Joel that he wasn't there for the tournament.
The better question should have been the better question from Josh should have been how many titles would Kelvin Sampson have won had he stayed at Indiana?
Now that's a good question because I would actually change the answer there, Jeff. You said maybe one. I'd say for Sampson at least one. I think he'd get one.
Mm-hmm. I agree. There are certain people that can handle certain jobs, right? Like they have the temperament, the personality, they can handle the pressure. They're at the right point in their careers. Kelvin Sampson was that guy at Indiana. He was. And obviously it didn't work because of, the violations, but he was the right guy then.
It's just absurd.
Well, it was too many phone calls, right?
Yeah, too many phone calls, but he did it over and over.
But just think about where we are in college basketball right now. that those two
Right.
tenures, Bruce Pearl at Tennessee and Kelvin Sampson in Indiana, were taken down by making too many phone calls and by bringing a player to a barbecue. You could buy a player a barbecue restaurant right now with NIL money. Like, just,
You could. You're right. You're right.
what are we doing, man?
Crazy.
I think I'm going to credit. I think I'm going to credit the Utah students. They've acted like they've been there before. They did not.
They're not-
Doesn't appear that they're storming the court after the win over
Wow.
Kansas, which they shouldn't. Kansas doesn't warrant it.
Yeah, look at them. Nothing. They're too nice.
Okay. There you ever
That
been out
one
there for a
cheerleader
game?
storm before, though.
I have. Yeah, great spot. Really, really, really cool spot. I was out there. I had
You're out there.
dinner with Craig Smith last year when I was out there. I didn't go to a
Well,
game
we
last
know.
year.
We know you'll be in Provo next year. Dagan, next question.
ZM wants to know, how do you guys see the Big Ten playing out to end the season?
Good question. I mean, as you guys are thinking about it here, let's do it right now with Michigan. Like Michigan's remaining schedule, they're at Ohio State tomorrow, big game in Columbus. Then they host Michigan State. Then they're at Nebraska. Nebraska, lost to Maryland the other night. You host Rutgers, you host Illinois. You're going to be favored in those games, let's be honest. Then you host Maryland. You're going to be a favorite in that game. And then great job by the Big Ten, Jeff. Regular season finale, Michigan at Michigan State could be for the Big Ten title.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, the job Dusty May's done is ridiculous this year. And there were doubters. There were skeptics. There was criticism.
I know the
when he was
doubters,
hired.
right? Aren't we
Yeah, we
friends
know who
with
the
some of the
doubter
doubters?
We are friends with specifically one of the major doubters. And he's been very, very quiet of late. But I mean, what Dusty's done, again, like without a true point guard is remarkable, having to run his offense, through Danny Wolf, playing those two bigs together, finding ways to get help from Namari Burnett has done a great job this year. But yeah, I think Dusty's a guy. It's funny. I mean, I know there's a lot of speculation around Dusty right now, whether he'll go to Indiana or not. I hope he stays in Ann Arbor. I really do. I think it's the right spot for him. Big brand. It fits him. He can kind of play in the shadows of football. By the way, I'm watching this USA Canada. They're showing the highlights right now of these fights. 3 fights within 9 seconds, guys. 2 by the Kachuk brothers. USA against Canada. My question to you before we finish up this Big Ten combo, Fanta. I'm going off the rails a little bit. Who would be the guy in Field of 68 that you would be scared most of to fight, to go up against on the ice and have to take on? It's not an easy question because Kenny Freese probably can't skate.
Right. So first and foremost here,
Tyler can skate.
Can the people hear you as you're saying that it's
Can't,
not?
but it's Tyler. I mean, no, who can skate here? You think any of us can
Tyler's
skate
got
here?
bad knees. He's got bulky knees.
Okay,
I guarantee
so
he can
being able to skate is a prerequisite to this question?
Yes. You have to be able to
Who
skate.
the hell can
to
skate
punch.
here?
Well,
I can
Kevin
skate.
Sweeney,
I played hockey when I was
Kevin
young,
Sweeney, yeah. So Kevin Sweeney was in the 6th grade figure skating club at his grade school in Chicago. So he
did
danced
pirouettes.
to he was
Do you just want people to say
Captain
you,
Hook.
Jeff? Is that what you wanted?
Yeah,
People
No,
can
I'm
skate?
he
curious.
was Captain Hook and Peter
I'm
Pan, the
curious.
production of it in
Vanna,
6th
have
grade.
you skated? Did you
Okay,
ever
so I
skate?
went to Friday. Good question. I went to Friday night skate once in my life in the 6th grade, and let's just say I spent more minutes at the mozzarella stick stand than I did on the ice skating rink.
All right.
So
All right.
I did go on a date. I did go on a date in the 6th grade to Friday night skate, and I quickly realized that skating was not for me. Who would I be afraid of in the rink?
Yeah. Dauster, can you skate?
No.
No, can't skate.
I don't know.
I
guys.
gave
Like,
up
to
hockey
lose
when there was checking. I gave up hockey. I was
in a fight. Like, I mean, I just I don't know. I bet you Randolph Childress could skate. I just have a feeling. Yeah.
I'm going with the Tulip. I'm going with the Tulip.
LaTulip to win a fight?
Yeah, to be a good
Tulip is
skater.
5'10", 165. He's not fighting anybody. What are we talking about?
I'm sorry. But wait a minute. I did just picture Matt McCall in skates, and I really am laughing internally right now at the thought of
He's
him
from
doing
Florida. He doesn't even. Matt McCall doesn't know what ice skates are. What are we talking about here? Can we get us back on track? What a ridiculous statement!
Dagan, next question.
Thank you. Jeez, man, what the hell?
Can I answer the Big Ten thing?
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
Michigan's one of the Big Ten. There you go.
All right, who should get Big Ten Coach of the Year?
Dusty.
Dusty.
It's Dusty or Greg Gard for me. Greg Gard's got to be
Michigan,
in the equation, guys.
Oh, okay, he could be in the equation, and he's going to be second. No one said he's not in the equation, but if Michigan wins the Big Ten,
it's like in the Big East.
Who would be your Big Ten Coach of the Year? Like
the same thing could be said in the Big East. Greg McDermott's in the equation, but right now you'd probably give it to Rick Pitino.
Yes, I would definitely give it to Rick Pitino. 100%.
Did you know?
But I think
Jeff,
Gard.
did you know
I think Gard. Go ahead.
Pitino has never won Big East Coach of the Year.
Really? Wow, I did not know.
Think about that.
I did not know. That's amazing.
Think about that.
Yeah.
It is amazing. St. John's Creighton at the Garden tomorrow.
That'll be a good game.
You got a pick, Rob? Rhythm?
For Big East Coach of the Year?
No, for St. John's Creighton tomorrow. Battle for first place. Winners in first.
Johnnies. The Johnnies.
Jeffrey?
They're coming off a loss. They're, you know how mad they're going to be? You know how angry they're going to be? Imagine what practice has been like at St. John's the last 3 days since they went to Villanova and lost. Yeah.
I'm so excited to get to the Garden. I'm so excited to get. I haven't been in the Garden all year, you guys. This is the first time I haven't been in the Garden all year, and to get Duke, Illinois, with Rob Dauster's sleeper Final Four pick, the Illini, and yeah, how you feeling about that one now, Rob? That was a week ago. We can bring that clip back.
Yeah,
a week ago.
After they beat Duke, I'm going to be feeling fantastic about it.
They could. You never know with them. You never know.
They could. They legitimately could.
There's going to be a juice in that building over 16 hours. The next Saturday night, Cooper Flag in that building is going to have a very superstar at MSG feel, which we've had over the years. And then Pitino
I wonder if all the
Herbie.
Knicks players. I wonder if the Knicks are out of town or in town, because if not, all their players will be there for that game.
While you're looking that up, go ahead, Dagan.
Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson are going to be podcasting.
They will.
Dagan.
Thank you, Fanta. So some of the chat is upset that we didn't talk about Florida tonight and their 21-point win over the worst team in the SEC. Hold on, Fanta. Hold on. So I'm going to lump these three teams together. And one of them probably shouldn't be in here, but I'm going to do it anyway because we didn't talk about them. Duke, Tennessee, Florida. Let's talk about them.
Okay, first off, Florida fans got mad at me last night for not including their game in games to watch. You're playing a team that hasn't won a conference game. Enough. We think you're great. We think you could win the national championship. But you were never going to – that game was not competitive. I mean, you wanted to loop Tennessee, Duke, and Florida in. So, I mean, I guess Tennessee's much more important. We haven't talked about them. To me, though, if I'm a committee member watching Vanderbilt, Rob, Vanderbilt was right there and fell just short by 5. Zakai Ziegler writes another chapter in his career. He had 22, all of which came in the second half, Rob.
I love it feels very weird for me to say this, but I actually really enjoy watching this Tennessee team play because you know what you're going to get defensively. And then what they do is they kind of figure out what works and they just run it over and over and over again when they get to the second half. And today it was they're going to put Chaz Lanier and Justin Gainey into floppy action. And when that doesn't work, they're just going to get the ball back to Zakai Ziegler. They're going to go high ball screen and they're going to let this dude cook. and Vandy was trying to go over the screens and play drop, and he was just coming off of it, and he was picking them apart. And it was a pleasure, man. Like it sometimes we forget how good Zakai Ziegler is. And I feel like whenever we have that conversation about who are the best point guards in college basketball, everyone, Braden Smith comes up, and Cam Jones comes up, and Walter Clayton comes up, and there's a lot of other. I'm probably missing someone off the top of my head, but we never put Zakai Ziegler in that conversation. 22 points, 4 assists in the second half tonight, just the second half. Tennessee comes back from 16 points down against Vandy. I'm kind of getting back in on Tennessee, Goodman, and you know what that means? They're about to lose 4. Season's over for Tennessee. The second I buy into the Vols, that's it. They're done. They're toast. So, sorry, Tennessee fans. That might be the death knell of your season.
That game feels like it was like 3 days ago, by the way. That Vandy Tennessee game, doesn't it? At noon today.
It was a wild. I didn't. You're using the clicker all day today, all day and night.
Right. It was that type. These Saturdays are again, they're so much fun, but they're draining because you're trying to keep track of everything, and then you realize like how much you're going to miss them because we've only got, what do we have, like 3 or 4 left?
3
That's
left.
it.
Really?
Of like 3 left of regular season Saturdays.
Yeah, because I don't count championship Saturday.
Right. No. You can't.
It's a lot of fun.
And even I feel like even the third one is probably when smaller conferences tournaments start.
Yep.
Maybe
Missouri Valley and all that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the first Saturday of March is a ridiculous slate too. I was just looking at the calendar. Everyone is. It's great. It's so much fun for the sport. And just think, Rob, you made me think of this when you said this about North Carolina and Syracuse. This is in a year where the ACC is historically in a kind of a down spot. It's also in a year where there's still a couple Big East programs that have typically been better than this and right now are going through some tough times, and I would expect them to respond next year, like in a bigger way, a la Xavier's got to be better. They just haven't been good enough. And Villanova, you would expect. Lost in all this today. I'm just going to be real with you guys. Villanova followed up a big win over St. John's. They got run off the floor at Providence. That's not good news for Kyle Neptune and for Villanova. You can't be following up big wins with those types of losses into a Providence team that has had a bad year. Dagan, I think you said you had a question more or two.
Yeah, I have one more for you guys. Then we can wrap this up. Obviously, one thing that didn't happen on the court today, the top 16 reveal. Reaction to that, kind of what teams you thought maybe got left out, kind of just your overall thoughts.
I don't think anyone got left out. I thought that we
goodbye to Kansas.
I thought that we nailed. Fielding the 68 guys, like we got to shout out that crew: Brad Wachtell, Lucas Harkins, Rocco Miller, especially who is absurdly locked in. It's I don't know how Rocco does what he does, man, but he's locked in on everything. Those guys had it nailed. The only thing they got wrong was they had, I think it was Arizona as a 4 and Texas Tech as a 3. They had those two flip-flop. That was it. They had everything else down to a T. So shout out to those guys. Fielding the 68. Mondays at 5 p.m. Eastern time, Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern time, if you want the best bracketology info that you can possibly get. The 5 of the top 6 teams coming from the SEC is what surprised me more than anything else. We knew that there was going to be 3 of the top 4, something like that, but Houston falling out of that group, Purdue falling out of that group. That was what kind of surprised me a little bit. Texas A&M as the number 6. It's a lot, man. That's a lot.
Houston will get back in there now. I would think after that win. Again, we didn't talk enough about that. How hard it is to win at McHale, and Houston winning 11 in a row on the road. Like, think how hard that is to do in league play. They're just so mentally tough. They should absolutely move up into that, top 5, 6. To me, I'd have Houston ahead of Vandy.
We do this every year with Houston, and every year I tell myself I'm not going to let not going to fall into that trap, right? I'm not going to let myself overlook this Houston team. I'm not going to ignore the fact that they continue to be this good offensively, and they're always that good defensively, and they have the culture, and all they do is win. And I did it because I was worried about them not having a closer, and then Juwan Roberts kind of figured things out and how to be that guy. We saw 2 big shots from LJ Cryer tonight, and I mentioned it earlier, but Milos Uzan, man, He's been so good for the last month, so good, and it's getting no publicity. We are not talking about it enough. We really should be talking about it more. He had a huge shot. It was 57-56, and he hit that floater with like a minute left to put him up by 2. Like he's been unbelievable. I said it before. The last 4 games, he is averaging 36 minutes a game. Fanta, 36 minutes a game. He has 1 turnover. 1 turnover. To 22 assists. He's been unbelievable.
They're 22-2 in their last 24 conference games. 22-2. This is the Big 12. They were not in this league 2 years ago. They were in the freaking American. And Kelvin Sampson said that he felt going to the Big 12 was great for the school, but it was actually going to be rough for his program. Kelvin, I love you. It was amazing for your program because of how awesome you are. You've got game day next Saturday. Houston didn't host college game day 2-3 years ago, and they're going to have it next week, and we're talking about them, and that's a terrific brand new hoops building. But you're 22-2 over your last 24. You took, to me, this is the best example. This is my takeaway from the top 16 reveal. And Jeff, I am 97% positive you're going to agree with me on this. And if you don't, I'll be very, very surprised. Michigan has played a total of 2 quadrant 4 games. Houston took early losses. And everybody's talking about, are they going to have more of a down year when they lose to Auburn and then they lose to Alabama in the Players era? Then they lost to San Diego State. And people are saying, like, are they going to have a down year? Arizona. But Arizona was 5-6 on the season. Like 5-6 on the season. But they played a bunch of people. What's the point? The point is, if you play people, you still could end up in that top 16 reveal with a freaking worse record than you would be at 9-1 against Cupcake City.
Right. Mm-hmm. No, agreed. I mean, listen, those guys, you just named them, right? Tommy Lloyd, Kelvin Sampson, Bill Self, Scott Drew played a really good non-conference schedule. The guy who didn't was TJ Otzelberger, and I'm still going to rip on him over and over and over until he finally plays a decent non-conference schedule. He probably won't, but
he got Purdue in a home yesterday.
He did. That's good. Good job, TJ. Good job. Maybe you'll ramp it up even more. I think he's already asleep. Well, I think he's already asleep. He's not even listening to me. Unfortunately, he doesn't consume our content very often. But I do love those guys,
which is probably smart of him. Yeah.
Probably is smart because all I do is rip on his crappy non-conference schedule. The cupcakes. I mean, actually, if I was going to the Big 12 tournament this year, I would bring him a tray of cupcakes this year.
Which you're not.
Sure.
And by the way, you wouldn't be allowed.
Why aren't you going to the Big 12 tournament this year, Jeff?
No, Rob, stop. Rob,
because last year I needed binoculars. For my media seat was all the way up top. I needed binoculars. And then I had to buy a seat for every single session. I had to literally dip it in my own pocket and buy seats for
dip into your own. Don't lie. Don't you expensed every single one of those tickets? You didn't dip into your own pocket.
Well,
you expensed every single one of them.
It's our pocket. The Campbell. Look at that. That's a nice hat.
I am wearing my Campbell bucket hat.
I like it.
Because
Why did you guys run out of the screen? I don't understand why you got out of the shot when I was ripping on the crappy media seats for the Big 12 tournament. Why are you running from that?
That's exactly why we don't.
No.
We're done. We're done taking the bullets. I'm not going to be your shield anymore. You got to fight your own fights.
Oh, I'll fight my own fight next Sunday. Don't you worry.
Oh God, please.
You know,
Toast
anything
of the night.
else, Dave?
Toast of the
That's
night.
it. All right.
Toast of the night.
Any final toast of the night? Go ahead, Jeffrey.
I'm going to toast to JT Toppin. JT Toppin had, I think, 32, and I don't know. He had like 32 tonight and 10 or 12, and he had 41 and 15 last game. Insane 2-game stretch for JT Toppin at Texas Tech, and they destroyed Oklahoma State today.
Yeah, they did. My toast of the night is going to go. It was going to go to JT Toppin. I had a nice stat and everything that you kind of ruined there, Jeff. But I'll go with George Mason. The Patriots were down by as many as 13 points in the first half to St. Joe's. Come back and win. They're now 21-5 on the season, 12-1 in the A10. Tony Skinn has a defensive juggernaut there in Mason in the A10, and they are heading towards a showdown next Saturday at VCU. VCU is in second place in the A10, a game out of first place. If George Mason wins that, they'll have a 2-game lead with 4 games left over VCU for an A10 regular season title. I'll tell you what, man, I'm getting very strong throwback CAA vibes with VCU and George Mason playing for league championships. It's awesome. It's a great thing for the Atlantic 10. That's a fun rivalry in the state of Virginia.
Yeah, I'm going to toast a couple people to cap off the night. I'm going to toast Scotty Middleton for being the hero today at the Prudential Center and giving them honor of Dagan Hughes, and my Pirates coming away with a win. I'm going to shout out Drake because for America, we've all watched them, but they're in action tomorrow on ESPN2 at 2 o'clock. The Bulldogs are 23-2. They could, if they run the table in the Valley and make the final, I'm just going to tell you right now, committee, please, you're putting them in the tournament, or else we're gonna have some real problems on Selection Sunday night because their season's been unbelievable, as Jeff has well documented. And I'm going to toast one more guy here that I think I'm going to let Jeff give 30 seconds here for a moment. He's 13-1 in his league. They've won 12 in a row. He's a Massachusetts guy. Pat Scarry has Towson rolling in the CAA. They're 13-1. Jeff,
yeah.
Coach Scarry's been at it a long time. If he could ever make the tournament, Towson, it's been a long time.
Yeah, and he's been there a while and turned around this program, took it over. They won 1 game his first year, and they're right now knocking on the doorstep. Right now they've got a 2-game lead over Wilmington, and they've got the tiebreaker over Wilmington with 4 games to go. So it looks pretty good for Pat Scarry. I still want to know if he actually got his Tufts degree. I just don't buy that he actually got that Tufts degree. I don't know. So
Goodman, do you know what Tufts' nickname is? What's their mascot?
No.
Oh boy,
I don't remember.
The Jumbos.
Pat's belly. Pat's belly sometimes looks like a jumbo.
And so
I got one thing. I got one thing for you guys. I got one thing for you guys.
You and I have that in common. Go ahead, Rob?
I just need Goodman to offer up an apology to somebody.
For what?
He is a player. Over the course of his last 5 games, he's averaging 19.6 points. Right, he is shooting just under 50% from 3 on nearly 8 attempts per game. He is playing for a team that is currently considered to be one of the top 2 teams in America, pretty much by consensus, even if the AP poll doesn't say as much. He's turned into one of the best 3-and-D weapons that you're going to find in all of college basketball. So, Goodman, let me know when you are going to apologize to Tyrese Proctor. I just want to know.
Oh, boy.
Yeah,
when are you going to apologize to him?
He has. He's been really good. No, well, you didn't put the hex on him this year. You put the Dauster hex on him preseason a year ago.
It was the post-hype bump, man. It was the post-hype breakout.
Oh, man,
There's nothing I look more forward
really
to.
did.
There's nothing I look
And the
more
Dauster
forward to than
hex.
Selection Sunday. No. You know what we're going to force our cats to do? Selection Sunday night. They have to pick like a 5 to 7 or 8 seed that they consider to be like the dark horse of like I'm talking make a regional final.
Yeah.
I just want to put a list together. And one of that and one of Cinderella, and then we could just watch things blow up in our faces on Thursday and Friday. It's good to like I just need to see. I need to see our seed.
We're gonna have Survivor.
We're gonna have a Survivor pool. Yeah, and everybody is gonna have to be involved across the network. And we will have a special prize for whoever wins. It'll be a battle. It's going to be a war.
There should be a punishment if you're out. There should be a punishment for the first person out.
Better the punishment is you're gonna have to get in the ice with Dauster. You versus Dauster on the ice.
Which makes no sense.
Goodman, you have to stop coming up with ideas. Just stop.
No, it's a great idea.
With ideas,
I would pay to watch the two of you try to throw haymakers.
And we are ending this stream because I still think one of you is going to end up in the Riverwalk this April during the Final Four, which is not legal, by the way. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Thanks to Bruce Pearl for appearing. It feels like 3 days ago when we interviewed him. That does it for us on After Dark. We'll see you tomorrow night. A big day of college hoops and interesting Sunday that Penny Hardaway is always a part of being in the American. We'll talk to you tomorrow.